So I was watching the Today Show one morning, and Carson Daly was talking about Spotify Rap 2024, which is the listing of the songs that you listen to the most or stream the most on Spotify. So he asked the rest of the Today Show crew um, what was their top songs, and for Hoda and Savannah, they both chose a Taylor Swift song. They were different Taylor Swift songs, and it's like, okay, that's predictable. And then Craig Melvin, Craig had Shabuzi, Bar Song Tipsy. Everybody club doing tips. I was looking at all three of us, like, really? Shabuzi and Taylor Swift? Like, you guys didn't listen to anything else. There was no other songs that came out than Taylor and Shabuzi. Okay. And then it was Al Roker, and Al had Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John. And it's Philadelphia Freedom came out like 74, 75. And it's like, man, Al must have listened to that song every day for it to be number one. Hey, shout out to Elton John. Elton John recently went blind in his right eye. He was living in France, and he caught some type of infection a few months ago, and his right eye went blind. So hopefully he'll get his sight back in 2025, but we're going to have to see. So I have Spotify, but I don't go on too often. So I started thinking, if I had a Spotify Rap for 2024, what would my top songs be? And I'll tell you right now, like, I was looking at the top 5. Number 5, which came in as a rocket, is Kendrick Lamar's TV Off. I can't get past, I just can't get past, yes, the mustard, like, I get that, but it's just the sample. It's that charging sample, man. It's almost like we're ready to go to war. Y'all don't know who y'all messing with. I love that. So that rocketed into my number 5. But my 3 and 4 song is Drake. And even though Kendrick destroyed Drake in 2024, two of my favorite songs this year, from start to finish, was First Person Shooter with J. Cole and You Broke My Heart. I know that Drake has had a horrible year, and him suing Kendrick Lamar in December doesn't make much sense. But man, First Person Shooter, bigger than the Super Bowl. People seem to forget how big that song was at the start of this year. And then you followed it up with You Broke My Heart. That's like old school Drake at its finest. So yeah, Arbery had a bad year, but those songs, even compared to some of the songs that came out later in the year, and there's some decent hip hop songs that came out, but man, First Person Shooter and You Broke My Heart, that's my 3 and 4. Number 2, which most people would think would be my number 1, is Die for a Smile, Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Any other time, overall, it's my number 1. But on this particular list, it's not my number 2. Die for a Smile, to me, as soon as Bruno comes in with that guitar, with that, and then Gaga comes in, and then she breaks it down with that cigarette. If the party was over. Oh, I love that song so much. Man, Bruno can't miss. I love a Bruno Mars track. And the thing about Bruno that I appreciate is he disappears. He disappears. He has Silk Sonic, Hannah Anderson, Pac was running everything, and then Bruno just disappears. And then there was those rumors that he was in debt. Because he had the biggest registry, so he's doing that. And then Die for a Smile just popped up out of nowhere, man. So like any other time, this song would be my number 1. But my number 1 song is Sacred Souls, Can I Call You Rose? Because when I was thinking, like, okay, I had Die for a Smile at my number 1, but I kept on thinking there was another song that I heard this year that, as much as I love Die for a Smile, I actually like that even more. But I couldn't think what it was, and I was on the TikToks, and I heard this, and I was like, oh my God, I remember, because this was a viral moment earlier in the year when people were making videos to Sacred Souls, Can I Call You Rose? Can I Call You Rose? Oh, I remember when that stuff was going on. I was like, what year did this song come out? And I Shazammed it. And I said, well, this got to be like 1971 or 1965. It was 2020. First of all, I was upset because I felt like, how did I miss this song during the pandemic? Because the pandemic, when everything shut down, that was March 11th, 2020. And the Sacred Souls dropped Can I Call You Rose on Daptown Records, I think. Daptones Records. They dropped that on March 18th, 2020. So I don't know if they did that on purpose, that they wanted to drop this track right during the pandemic like that, or they just said, let's just see what happens. Man, I love that song. So when I first heard that song this year, I just like, who is this? Who is this singing? And the lead singer is Josh Lane. Man, the instrumentation, the production of that, it transports you to like 1963, 1964. It's that early parts. You have the Motown era, but you still have remnants of doo-wop. Like this is when Sam Cooke was still alive and you still had Otis Redding. And that doo-wop influence on these tracks, man. I miss, that's the thing that's missing today is soul music. And the production of that, it feels like the Sacred Souls went from a time machine in 2020 and went back to 1963 and talked to people back then. It's like, show us how you produce these tracks so we can take it back to the 2020s. And I think when I researched the song back earlier this year, I think they actually talked to a guy who produced songs like that back in the 60s. And they talked to him about production. And I think they probably used some instrumentations or some production boards or something like that gives you that rich sound. There's a part in the song where it goes silent because there's an echo in it. And then the snare comes in and it echoes. And it feels just like something like a snare. It was a snappy snare that echoes. It feels like something James Brown would have said. I want a tight snare. I want it to echo. I'm sorry. I want a tight snare. I want it to echo. Oh my God. That song is so good. And there's a part in the song where Josh starts talking. I kind of miss that in R&B when dudes start talking. And when he talks, he sounds just like Marvin Gaye. The track itself sounds like a Marvin, Can I Call You Rose actually sounds like a lost Marvin Gaye song in a lot of ways, but he starts talking. And, Michael Jackson's always famous with his high voice, which I think he kind of blemished a bit. But Marvin Gaye also had a higher register, but it was a very pimpish type tone. It was very smooth. And it's like, hey, my name is Marvin. How you doing today, baby? Oh, Marvin Gaye was so smooth. And Can I Call You Rose is almost like a reflection of that early 60s Marvin Gaye, that smooth looking Marvin Gaye with the flat top. It's almost like a Auburn looking Cam Newton before Cam got the hat and the mustache. It was like the old school Cam, smooth Cam. Oh man, young Marvin Gaye was cool, man. He was smooth. This is a type of track, man. This is a type of track that you sound horrible in the car. You sound horrible in the shower. But when you hear it in the store, let's say you walk in the store and you hear it, you just say, can I call you Rose? Dun, 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 dun. Everybody looking at you, what's going on over here? Oh my God, this song is so good. You get your Eddie Kane from the 5 Heartbeats on. You're like, I still got it, Duck. Dang. If you haven't seen the 5 Heartbeats, if you've seen the 5 Heartbeats, you know what that scene is. If you haven't seen it in a long time, go please see Robert Townsend's The 5 Heartbeats. One of the greatest music movies ever. Should have been nominated for an Oscar. Oh, it was a fantastic film. But yeah, I love Can I Call You Rose? And I have to say, I started thinking, is this one of my favorite tracks of the 2020s? Is this like my number one song of the 2020s? I was like, no, it's still got to be Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic. Like Bruno, the last time I heard Bruno was he had made Tease Me with Cardi B, one of my favorite tracks ever. He disappears and we didn't hear nothing from Bruno. And he pops back up with Anderson .Paak with Silk Sonic. And I remember when I heard Leave the Door Open, I was like, oh my God. Like Richard Pryor has that joke about in the woods, when you make a sound, it turns around. And when you first hear Leave the Door Open, and when first time I saw the video, I was like, what was that? That's how I felt. And then they had skate for me, baby. And then they had Smoking Out the Window. I love those dudes. And I hope that Bruno and Gaga performs Die of a Smile at the Grammys or the American Music Awards. They performed it a few times, but I need them to do that on an award show. Oh my God. Oh, I love those guys, those two together. So if you have a Spotify list, what is your top songs on your Spotify rap list of 2024? If you don't, what is your top 5 or even favorite song of 2024? Can I call you Rose? Can I call? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, so good.